What's up, gamers? Welcome back to another After Action Report with your boy Joshua Joshi Howard. Today, we're going to be talking about a recent event that I went to called There Is Only War in Phoenix, Arizona. My goal is to get this video to be under 45 minutes, so let's see if we can do it. I want to give a big shout out to a couple of people for this. The first one is, of course, the TO, Jason Flanzer, doing a fantastic job with the second event of his I've gone to. I went to There Is Only War 2 last year in a similar position, and then also Smite Club provided a lot of the terrain, which was very important because apparently the Gamers Guild place that we were hosting at did not have the terrain come in time. They had some issue with one of their orders that they placed, and so Smite Club provided a lot of the terrain for the event, which was awesome. Also, want to give a shout out to people who live in the Southwest. If you live in Phoenix, the new Gamers Guild location, I think in Deer Valley, part of Phoenix, one of the best game stores I've ever been to. So if you have an opportunity to go check it out while you are in Phoenix, apparently it's the second largest gaming store in the entire country, and it is really cool. Would very much highly recommend to go check it out. Also, the food at the Forks and Boards, which is like their conjoined restaurant, really good. I would definitely recommend checking it out. So go check it out. I said check it out like 4 times there. Oh well. I went to this event with a couple of people, my roommate Ben, and then my buddy Alejandro, who is also part of the Get Hammer organization or club that we play with in Orange County / Los Angeles area. So that was a lot of fun. We road tripped out there, took about 6-7 hours to get there. Then we road tripped back, which again took about 6-7 hours on our way back. We ended up getting back on Sunday night, Monday morning, around like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I ended up not recording this yesterday, and I'm recording it today. So hopefully I'll just get it out by the end of the day, and I won't have to worry about it anymore. Let's talk about the lay of the land real quick. So this event had about a quarter of the field in the 1600 club or above, which generally means that this is, if you play League of Legends, it's roughly like diamond or better. But there was also a pretty significant stratification. There was a very high level top end, so it was very top heavy is what I'll say. Once you were playing into like that upper echelon of players, it became very difficult very quickly. We were also playing entirely on Games Workshop terrain with the WTC FAQ, but not using the WTC charge rules. So you could not do the 2-inch engagement range off of the wall. Before we get into our first game, I do want to say on day one, I had like Indian food or something the night before. I had really bad indigestion pretty much the entire of the first day and a little bit into the second day as well. I don't really feel like I played particularly well on the first day. However, the decisions I made are the decisions that I made, of course. So don't want to take anything away from my opponents, but I do feel like I could have played a little bit better. And we'll talk about some of the mistakes I made because of whether I was distracted, whether I was just like not having a good day of games. Regardless of what it was, I ended up making some of the mistakes, and so we'll go ahead and talk about them. Let's also go ahead and talk about my list. I'm not going to go into it into super heavy detail because it's pretty similar to a lot of lists I've played in the past. I played Gaunt's Ghosts, Lord Solar attached to a Platoon Command Squad and a Catachan Jungle Fighters, 1 Militarum Tempestus Command Squad with as many special weapons as you can pack into it, 2 more additional units of 10 Jungle Fighters, 1 Chimera with Heavy Flamers, 3 units of Maximum Bullgryn, 1 Hellhound with the Inferno Cannon and a Multi-Melta, 1 Exterminator Leman Russ with Multi-Meltas, of course, 2 Rogal Dorns with Heavy Stubbers and Multi-Meltas, and then 1 big brick of Tempestus Scions. It is worth noting that Aquilons were not allowed at this event because they had been released too close to the rules cutoff. But basically, it is a pretty standard, more elite double Dorn, triple Bullgryn style of build with the Exterminator, the Hellhound, and then the Tempestus Scions, able to do fulfilling roles, and then having Catachan as just a way to put OC on objectives where I need them to be and to use them to deny primary. And sometimes score secondary when the situation calls for it. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the first game that I played. Like I said, I'm going to try and do this relatively quickly and just really talk about some of the main decision points that I made or my opponents made in order to actually help you guys understand what was happening in these games in important ways. So in my first game, I ended up playing up against a guy named Killian. I'd actually played him at the previous There Is Only War in Phoenix, Arizona, and he was playing almost the exact same list that he was playing from last year. He was still playing Chaos Knights. But he was playing a pretty standard Chaos Knights list from what you're used to seeing. He had 1 War Dog Stalker, which was his Warlord. He had 5 Brigands, 6 Carnivores, 1 unit of Nurglings, and 1 unit of Plague Bearers. That was the entire list. Very standard stuff coming out from Chaos Knights. We played this one on Tipping Point, Raise Banners, and Take and Hold on Games Workshop number 1, which you can see here. And this game mostly came down to a single mistake that I made relatively early on. On turn 1, Killian planted a Carnivore right in here. And I had my Lord Solar Brick in here kind of spread out something like this. I had another unit of Catachan here, and then a big unit of Bullgryn here, an inch back from the wall such that you could not charge it this direction. And basically, I made the mistake of thinking on Killian's turn 2 that after this movement, he would have to charge this carnivore into these Bullgryn. I did not think he had the movement necessary to get over here and charge into Lord Solar. And he did. Um, Lord Solar Brick was already weakened because he had every single one of his war dogs had the indirect like little mortar that it has on top of it, and he was able to do a lot of damage to the Catachan squad. I think he killed like 8 of the Catachan in the unit already, so the unit was already very very low. And then when he was able to get this charge off, he was also able to do a tank shock, and then eventually it was just the carnivore swinging into Lord Solar all on his own, and that was crippling. This was a really massive mistake. That was a really easy thing not to do for me. I just, like I said, I assumed that he did not have the movement to make this charge happen, and he did. And I think the biggest thing here, I was still able to do a lot of damage to his army. Doing damage wasn't the problem, but the major problem that I ended up running into was the fact that I lost mobility. Suddenly, my Bullgryn were not moving 9 inches. They were not able to get charges off that I wanted to use in order to put them onto objectives later on in the game. I did not have the CP in order to go for grenades or tank shock, or just as importantly, redrawing some of my secondaries throughout the course of the game. Losing the orders for the damage on the Rogal Dorns was, like, it sucked, but it wasn't really the major problem. The major problem, again, was the fact that I just mismeasured, made some assumptions, and you'll kind of notice that this was a bit of a theme that I have throughout the course of day 1. The only other really interesting thing that happens this game is because I am only holding my own primary pretty much the entire game. I'm never really able to hold this one. I'm never able to really get out here or here. I ended up going for a secret mission because I was being held down to 5 primary almost every single turn on take and hold, which is really bad. But Killian had a unit of Plague Bearers that was spread out something like this, and I ended up going for a secret mission. The secret mission I go for is hold 3, with my goal being to hold this one, and this one. And I actually get really close. I'm able to hold this one, and I think I fail a battle shock, which prevents me from holding this one. But my general goal was, after my Scions had died, I recycled them and dropped them here, and they killed almost all of the Plague Bearers. However, a couple of crucial things happened. The first one was that I end up also dropping Gaunt's Ghost, and Gaunt himself hits a charge and gets himself onto this objective. However, Killian has a brigand or something somewhere in here that is able to move here and then use Gaunt, who is now on the objective, as a charge target. So he's able to put the 8OC onto this objective. The other thing was I didn't quite fully kill the Plague Bearers. So the Plague Bearers, which were here, were then able to charge into my Scions such that they could not move the full distance. They could not get an advance off in order to find themselves on the objective. And so not fully killing this was too bad, but I think the bigger issue was that I went for this charge with Gaunt in order to try and put themselves on this home objective at the very end, which allowed him to put another War Dog on the back objective. So I think the biggest lesson here is, if you don't need to give your opponent an opportunity to get on this objective, to get on an objective, don't get them charge targets. And that was the major thing, right? The first charge target that I gave was here. The second charge target that I gave was here. These end up being really killer. And ultimately, I did okay on scoring my secondary, but I got slaughtered on primary on this because I went second going into Chaos Knights. I mismeasured a couple of charges, and even though I was able to kill a lot of his stuff and definitely had enough things at the end of the game to potentially mount a comeback, I just did not have enough mobility because I had lost Lord Solar so early into the game. So really kind of rookie mistake that I made early on, and that ends up meaning that my first game I ended up losing to Killian 57-87, where literally the entire difference in this game is made up off of that primary differential, where I only scored 20 primary to his 50. Ultimately, pretty disappointed with how I played the first game, but Killian was a wonderful player to play against. Really enjoyed the game up against him for a second time, and hopefully I'll be able to beat him the third time we find each other. So I go into my second game 0-1, which is not something I'm used to generally doing going into tournaments. I'm used to winning my first game in general, but I ended up playing up against Nick and his Dark Angels Gladius, and it was a fairly standard looking Gladius list from what I've seen so far. He had an Apothecary Biologist with the Fire Discipline Enhancement, Azrael, 1 Ballistus Dreadnought, 3 units of Deathwing Knights, 2 of them with maces, 1 of them with the swords, 1 Eradicator squad, 1 big Hellblaster squad, an Inceptor squad, a Landrider Redeemer, and then 2 Scout squads. So the only real changes, we saw the Landrider Redeemer instead of the whatever one it is that you normally put Eradicators in. I think it's some kind of repulsor. And then the Inceptors were a little bit of a tech piece. And then the Hellblasters were a bit of a surprise piece to me. I normally am used to just seeing the Eradicators coming out in a Gladius list. But overall, he still had the 3 Deathwing Knights. And it was still a list where you had to respect how much damage it can put out. We played this one on Scorched Earth with Search and Destroy and Stalwarts. That's the one where you can still shoot or be engaged and do an action if your unit is Battleline. So in this game devolved pretty quickly into a melee, but what I had ended up doing is I deployed a Rogal Dorn like here with a Hellhound. I think this is the Hellhound. This is the Rogal Dorn. And then I had another Rogal Dorn like here. And then I think I had my Leman Russ Exterminator also like this. And then basically 2 units of Bullgryn here. And then 1 unit of Bullgryn like this. And this is most of my relevant deployment. And of course I had like my solar thing here. S for solar. And what happened in this one was Nick ended up going first, and he had a Ballistus, the Land Raider, and then his Hellblaster unit, I think, was just here. And basically, what happened was I made sure that this distance was too far. He was never going to be able to put his Eradicators into my Rogal Dorn. And even if he did, it was probably not going to kill it simply because he was not getting the melted 2. Either way, what happened on turn 1 was Nick saw blood in the water, and what he did was he took his Hellblasters, put them out here. The Redeemer hopped out here and disgorged the Eradicators. So there's just this mass of Marines here in the middle of the board. And what Nick was able to do was he was able to take the Eradicators and the Hellhounds, and he was able to kill both the Hellhound and the Exterminator on his turn 1. But what this ended up meaning was that the game was going to devolve into a brawl going into my first turn. Because with so many Marines on the board, it's important to pay attention to the fact that Hellblasters cannot shoot on death if they're in melee, even with the pistols, simply because it's out of phase. Just like big guns never tire, pistols only allow you to shoot when you're in combat while you are in your own shooting phase. And basically what I ended up doing is I put 1 unit Bullgryn here, so they just went like here, and then I don't remember exactly what it was, but I put something in harm's way for Nick to actually overwatch with his Land Raider Redeemer. And when he did, I think it was a Chimera. Yeah, I had like a Chimera here, and it went to here. And then as soon as he overwatched it with the Land Raider Redeemer, I was like, awesome. Well, now I'm going to use these other Bullgryn. And I think Nick made his second crucial mistake here, which he did not use squad tactics in order to take his Hellblasters or his Eradicators and put them back into his Land Raiders, simply because he wanted to save the CP. He spent something on turn 1, but on turn 2, he ended up using Overwatch, and he wanted to save it for Armor of Contempt on the Land Raider, partly because I had drawn Bring It Down. But it meant that the Eradicators and the Hellblasters were all just in the middle of the board, and the game very quickly became, I put 2 units of Bullgryn just wrapping all of the units that were here. 1 unit of Bullgryn came out this way to come tag the whatever the Dreadnought was called. And I kill almost all the Hellblasters. I almost kill the Land Raider. The Eradicators are almost dead. And so by the time we get to this position, Nick doesn't really have a whole lot left other than the Deathwing Knights. Yes, he has the Land Raider. Yes, he has the Dreadnought, but these are not going to be doing enough damage to chew through Bullgryn, and they're definitely not going to be doing any damage to my Rogal Dorn. And what I had realized at that point was, as he brings in his Deathwing Knights, because he has like a unit here, he dropped a unit here, and 1 unit moved, they didn't quite get on the objective, and then he would rapid ingress 1 here at some point. This all ended up coming towards the middle and being a giant brawl. And what I know very well about this matchup is when Bullgryn and Deathwing Knights are just brawling, it's good for guard. Because even though we're going to do a little bit less damage to the Deathwing Knights on average than they're going to do to us, it means that his unit, which is generally costing about I think it's 235, he spends an extra 150 points on guys who are just sitting there doing nothing. Whereas that's almost an entire Leman Russ that we just have an extra tank able to move around and affect the board. And that's more or less what happened in this game. Nick never really got control of the game. Again, one of the things that I also ended up doing was Nick dropped his 3 Inceptors here, and he had like a scout squad or something back here. I was able to string out my Scions something like this, such that I was able to kill both the scouts and all the Inceptors as they were trying to burn this objective. So I just was able to trade my Scions 2 for 1 into one small unit and one slightly more durable unit. And the game really devolved at that point because I was just killing everything the entire time. I ended up winning this one 95-54. Simply because I think Nick conceptually didn't understand the matchup particularly well, and he didn't really have a great understanding of how to deal with Bullgryn. I ended up scoring maximum on primary on Scorched Earth, which does not happen very often because I was able to burn his home objective, and I did pretty well on secondaries. Yeah, I mean, I scored 35 points on my secondaries, which is mostly just a count of, like, am I able to score all my cards, and do I ever have cards that I'm not able to score? So, pretty happy with how this game went overall. So with that, we go into our third game, 1-1, and I play up against Travis and his Dark Angels Gladius. But this is a Dark Angels Gladius that I have never seen before, and I'm not sure if this is something that Travis cooked up on his own or if someone else was playing this somewhere else in the world, because it was a neat list. And honestly, I felt bad because I wish I could have given Travis a better game, but I was feeling really under the weather. I wasn't sick. That was the big thing. If I felt like sick and like contagious or something, I would have dropped immediately. However, I didn't feel sick like that. I felt like indigestion. It was clearly a digestive problem, but I was still like cold sweating a little bit, and I was very distracted with like, do I want to just go lie down? Do I want to play this game? But regardless, let's go ahead and talk about Travis's list and the cool things that it did. So he had Azrael as his warlord. He had a lieutenant with fire discipline. He had 3 units of assault intercessors with jump packs that were just running around being scoring pieces. He had 2 big units of hellblasters. He had 1 unit of incursors. These guys gave +1 to hit after they shoot at something. He had 3 predator destructors with las cannons. He had 1 repulsor with more las cannons. He had 2 storm speeder thunder strikes and 2 scout squads. Now, in conjunction, what this list does, incursors will give out +1 to hit. The storm speeder thunder strikes will give out +1 to wound against vehicles after they've shot. And then he has a lot of las cannons and a lot of plasma shots that are going to be going down range with +1 to hit, +1 to wound, potentially oaths on a single target, as well as access to the Devastator Doctrine, so they have access to advance and shoot. And he's going to try and do as much damage to you as possible in one turn. He also has 1 CP that he can spend on, I don't remember what the stratagem is called, but it's +1 AP and ignores cover. The +1 AP if you are in Devastator Doctrine. And so he's going to come out, he's going to alpha strike as hard as possible, and then once you charge into him, he also has Tactical Doctrine for the 1-turn fall back and shoot, which means that he's going to kill you really hard, and he's then going to try and kill you back after you go in for your counter swing. And so it's a really neat idea. I didn't really know how to play against it in the moment. I think if I had been feeling a little better, I could have played against it more effectively. Unfortunately, wasn't playing my best, and I was thrown off because it was such a different list, not something I'd really ever seen before. We ended up playing this one on Purge the Foe with Crucible of Battle and Rapid Escalation, the one where you can bring in up to 200 points of Battleline on turn 1 from reserves. Didn't affect either of us at all. But anyway, I ended up going first in this one. And what my movement looked like after turn 1 was I had my Rogal Dorn here. I had my Exterminator here. I had another Rogal Dorn like here. And I thought I was being rather safe overall from anything that Travis could throw at me. I knew that I was not going to be able to fully hide the Exterminator from this firing angle, especially if he wanted to come out from like here. But basically what happened was I underestimated how effectively Travis could actually move on the board. And for whatever reason, I was so focused on not being shot from this angle that I didn't really consider how effectively he could shoot me from this angle. And Travis took one of his Hellblaster units, and it went from here, popped out into the middle objective with the transport right behind it. And this Hellblaster unit killed the Exterminator with Oath, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, as well as re-rolling from Oaths with the sustained and lethal. And so this Exterminator died turn 1. I tried to pop Armored Might to keep it alive. Didn't matter because I didn't get a save. He had AP 4. Oh, I should have gotten a save. AP4 ignoring cover. I should have been on 6 ups. I did get, regardless, I think I did roll saves. I don't remember this game super well. But either way, he did enough damage, killed the Exterminator outright. Then, on the other side, I popped smoke on this because he took 2 Predators, lined them up here, had the Storm Speeder in such a way that all of these could see the back of the Rogal Dorn, and then he had like an Incursor guy shoot a shot in order to make sure that he could get the +1 to hit. And he rolled a little bit hot here, but the most important thing was that he got the +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and he also killed this Rogal Dorn on turn 1. And I ended up losing a lot of Rogal Dorns this tournament, but this Rogal Dorn dying on turn 1 meant that I just did not have enough firepower to go for a clapback. I tried to, on my turn 2, I had like Bullgryn here, and I think here, and I tried to kill these Hellblasters, but they just hopped back in. I tried to run into here, and send a Chimera up to try and get him off of these objectives, and basically everything I tried to do in this turn 2 ended up failing. I was not able to get some of the crucial charges off. I was not able to get the damage off that I needed to in order to really remove his ability to do damage back to me. Oh, he even took a Predator and a Storm Speeder over here. They shot at this Rogal Dorn. Didn't do a ton of damage, but they did do some damage into it. And I think the Rogal Dorn on my swing back, I think I killed the Storm Speeder. I think he killed both Storm Speeders on the swing back, something like that. But the point was he still had the vast majority of his firepower, and he had an entire another unit of Hellblasters that was waiting here in order to go for even more damage in another major turn. And he basically tabled all of my ability to play the game on turn 2. And after that, I told him, like, hey, Travis, you're a wonderful guy. You're a great opponent. And he really was. I really did enjoy playing against him. If I was feeling better, I think it would have been a more interesting game. But I didn't know how to deal with his list and was not able to adapt to it in the moment. And I ended up conceding going into turn 3 because I said, like, hey, I don't have the resources to do anything, and I kind of just want to go lie down. And so I ended up losing this one 44 to 100. Just let him score maximum on everything from that point on. The real score, if I had actually played it out, it probably would have been like 55 to 90. Something like that. You know, a little bit better. But regardless, it was definitely a big blowout because I didn't react to how it was, and I didn't respect these firing lines. And it ended up getting me killed. I just was not seeing angles that I normally would have. So at the end of day 1, I am 1-2. That is very uncommon for me as a player, and I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling anxious about like how strong of a player I actually am, which almost never happens to me. I'm pretty confident, and I feel like pretty confident in how good I think I am, and I think I'm pretty accurate with my assessment. Of course, everybody is going to say that, but I was legitimately thinking about dropping from the tournament because even though like Travis was a great opponent, Nick was a great opponent, Killian was a great opponent, I just wasn't having a lot of fun because I just wanted to go lie down. I wasn't feeling well. I had like some cold sweats. I was feeling anxious about my gameplay because I could tell that I was making mistakes in the things that I was doing. And I basically told myself, hey, if I'm not feeling better when I wake up tomorrow, I'm probably just going to drop. But I had a couple of thoughts. The first thought that I had was, you know, I paid money. I drove 6-7 hours out here to be in Phoenix. And as long as I am not feeling like actively bad, if I'm just feeling a little bit better tomorrow or the next day, I will play. Also, I wanted to salvage any elo that I had lost from the games that I had already played. If I can win my next 3 games, even if they're against lower rated opponents, then hopefully I can end up positive on my elo at this event. So we go back, get some Chinese food. It's pretty good. And then we get back to the hotel. There's no hot water in the hotel. Also, they didn't have extra blankets and pillows for whatever reason. So I think Alejandro ended up sleeping with just like a single pillow, and he just chose to sleep on the floor. He had a like cute little nest. I thought it was funny. We ended up checking out that Sunday morning, partly because Alejandro needed to get back for some meetings that he had on Monday, but also because the hotel really sucked. We ended up getting a full refund, which I'm still waiting to find out if I get. But that's kind of neither here nor there. We check out of the hotel early. We go to day 2. I'm feeling well enough that I was going to at least play my game 4 and go from there. In game 4, I ended up playing up against Derek and his Drukhari. Derek was playing an Archon with a Nightmare Shroud. I think this is the one where you can't be overwatched. Another normal Archon, a Beastmaster, Lilith, 2 units of Cavalite Warriors, 1 unit of Witches, 2 Raiders, 2 Venoms, 1 Court of the Archon, 1 Chronos, 1 unit of Incubi, 2 units of Mandrakes, 2 units of Scourges with the Haywire Blasters instead of the Dark Lances, 1 unit of 2 Talos, and a Void-Raven Bomber. We ended up playing this one on Games Workshop 8, which is a very odd deployment zone, as you can see. And this was the Ritual with Swift Action, so battle lines can advance and fall back in action on Crucible of Battle. And I had spent a lot of time looking at this one in order to try and figure out how you can come up with some kind of advantage. Now remember, these objectives are not here on the Ritual. And what I basically figured out that you can do is you can put like 1 objective here, 2 objectives something like this, and then 1 objective here, where the button is in no man's land. It actually, like, the actual objective hangs off the edge of the board. And what I was planning to do was have Lord Solar and friends just sit on these 3 objectives and score my 15 that way. And then if I really need to, I'm also going to be able to do a secret mission on them if I'm falling behind to at least guarantee I'm going to get 40 primary on this event. One of the major takeaways that you need to recognize on the Ritual is your home objective does not matter. The only thing you care about this for is defend stronghold and extend battle lines. Otherwise, I would oftentimes say you don't even want to sticky it because that gives your opponent access to Storm Hostile. So what I ended up doing is I deployed Lord Solar and friends like here, and my general goal was I was going to put Bullgryn here, here, create a screen here, create a screen here, and use that to just dare my opponent, how are you going to get into the castle? However, what actually happened in this game is I had a unit of Bullgryn here, a unit of Bullgryn here, I think a Dorn. The Dorns were something like this, and I had my Leman Russ Exterminator here. I had a unit of Catachan and a Chimera, and basically what happened is after they scouted to here, Derek made 2 crucial mistakes on his turn 1. The first one was he had, I think it was a Venom, whatever the little things are. He had a Venom run up to here, disgorge Lilith and the Witches, but because they moved, he had to spend 1 CP in order to get the assault ramp, and these guys came out to here. However, I don't know exactly why. He did not have the ability to take the Witches and fall them back into the transport afterwards. So they ended up just getting caught here. Yes, the Chimera died. Yes, almost all the Catachan were dead. But I ended up being able to trade out for Lilith and the Witches, which is fantastic for me. I'm always happy to make that trade because now he does not have any real pressure coming on to this objective. The other major mistake that Derek made was he took unit of Scourges. They went something like here in order to kill the Chimera, and then they were able to retreat to end somewhere around here. But he took his Beastmaster unit, which started here, scouted, moved, and then charged into this unit of Bullgryn. Now, some of you might already see the problem that is arising here, and that is based on the way that he moved, the Beastmaster had to put itself in such a way that this unit of Bullgryn was going to be able to heroic intervention. And this slaughtered Derek's ability to play the game. He ended up putting an objective something like here. Crucially, it was not like mine. It was not mirrored. It was a little bit closer to his home objective. But what ends up happening is the Bullgryn come here. I end up being able to put 2 units of Bullgryn into the Beastmaster, like this, and then Beastmaster unit dies. Right? That itself is not a huge problem. The Beastmaster unit, he expected to die, but I end up getting extra movement out of it. The problem was that the Bullgryn, after killing the Beastmaster, they get move. They're able to move to around here, and then they hit, this is like a 6 or a 7-inch charge into the Scourges. And they hit it. They kill the Scourges very easily. And crucially, he only has like a Venom on here for like 2 OC. The Bullgryn, after killing the Scourges, are able to consolidate onto this objective for 2 OC. And if you guys are used to playing the Ritual, you should know that the Ritual, the primary points that you score in the Ritual is almost always 5, 10, 15, 15. You're generally going to be looking at a 45 primary almost every single game, as long as you can put your objectives in safe places. I denied Derek his turn 2 primary. I killed one of his Scourge units. He no longer has enough firepower in order to really do a whole lot of damage. And now, there's a unit of 6 Bullgryn, which is just hanging out right outside of his deployment zone. On Derek's turn 2, he ends up bringing in the Void Raven Bomber here. He takes his entire army to try and kill the unit of Bullgryn, and I still live with 2. He even puts the Void Raven Bomber into the Bullgryn, because what he had wanted to do was, this Exterminator was doing recover assets or sabotage or something. He wanted to shoot it with the Void Raven Bomber, but he had done so little damage to the Bullgryn originally that he ended up shooting it at the Bullgryn, and even with the Void Raven Bomber shooting it, I still live with 2 of them. So, on my next turn, let's go back and reset. So he's got the Void Raven Bomber. I have 2 Bullgryn here on his objective. Oh, he forgot to put down another objective. That was another big issue that he ran into. I was able to take both of these tanks, all 3 of these tanks, and they were able to kill the Void Raven Bomber. I also dropped Scions in a brick right here, which shot him off of this objective entirely. And because he didn't put another one, Derek ended up scoring no primary in his 3rd turn either, partly because he didn't build another objective like here or here. And so I held Derek down to 0 primary on turn 2, 0 primary on turn 3, and I had scored my 5 by putting one here, and then I scored my 10 by putting one around here, because Lord Solar's unit, like I said, was just playing for this pocket. And then the game ended. We had the clock called, and we were only able to finish 3 rounds. We didn't talk it out. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm ahead. There's no real way for Derek to come back in, because he does not have any pressure. He has no real way to get into my castle. Even though I have no way to get into his castle, I'm already up 15 primary and 9 secondary. So unless he has God draws, and I have the worst draws imaginable, there's no real way for Derek to come back. So we just called it at that. I end up winning this game 49-25. And really, this game comes down to this charge, where I was able to get the heroic intervention off, because he was not able to charge in such a way that I could not bring the 2nd unit of Bullgryn in, and the Beastmaster unit just ended up dying. And it's so much extra movement. So what I think the biggest thing that Derek could have done is, instead of moving, like, the Beastmaster moved like here with a scout and then like here-ish, if he had, instead of moved this 2nd move, if he had gone instead something like this, he still could have charged into the Bullgryn, and he also like tagged, I think, Catachan with the birds in order to try and kill them. But then he would not have been on this side of the Bullgryn. He would have been on this side of the Bullgryn, which would have been too far away for my other unit of Bullgryn to get their heroic intervention off. And it's one of those subtleties of movement that ended up costing him the game. But yeah, Derek was a fun opponent to play against. He had an interesting list. Had a lot of fun with that. I'm still feeling okay, health-wise, going into this next one, so I end up deciding to play my game 5. And in my game 5, I play none other than my very own roommate, Ben. And Ben was playing Tau. And an important thing to note about me playing Ben is we had played 13 times previously, and I had won 13 of those games. There is no way, even like I would have needed to feel really, really sick in order to not play this one, because there is no way in heck I was gonna let Ben just walk up and beat me for the first time in tournament. So let's go ahead and talk about Ben's list real quick. He was playing Kauyon Tau. He had 2 Cadre Fireblades, 1 Commander and Coldstar, 3 Breacher teams, 1 Pathfinder team, 3 units of Stealth Suits, 1 unit of Sunforge Battle Suits, 1 Ghost Keel, 2 Piranhas, 2 Riptides, 2 Skyrays, and then 2 Devilfish. Now, Ben and I have played against each other a lot, like we just said. And this might be the game that Ben has played the best. We ended up playing this one on Linchpin, Tipping Point, and Fog of War, so no core strats on turn 1. One of the big things to know about this deployment is that this middle objective is completely in the open. There's no way to stand on this where you're not going to get shot from wherever you want to shoot from. The other thing is that from here to here is a very makeable charge, especially for Bullgryn, which you're going to be moving 9. So on this one, Ben ends up going first on Kauyon, which is generally a good thing. They're one of the few armies that like going first because you basically get an entire extra half turn where you have Kauyon active. Because by the time you hit turn 5, it generally doesn't matter if you're doing damage from that position. It's just about scoring. So if you get to go first on turn 5, the damage that you do generally matters a little bit more than when you're going second. So from my perspective, this game was really interesting because he started off on turn 1. Ben put his Ghost Keel on this objective, which is a pretty normal thing to do. And he very specifically did it in such a way that was a bait because I had my Rogal Dorn deployed here because I knew that he did not have enough firepower to kill it on turn 1 because of how far away his Sky Rays, there was like a Sky right here, Riptides were like here and here, and then there was like a Sky right here. Anyway, I knew that he did not have enough damage to do any real damage to the Rogal Dorn on turn 1 if he went first, so I redeployed my Rogal Dorn here. He ended up drawing and bricking. He drew Overwhelming Force and Assassination, redrew one of them into Established Locus, which he did in the middle with a Piranha around here in such a way that it was blocking my Chimera and my Hellhound, which I had intentionally exposed early on in order to try and bait him into putting the Riptides like here, because I knew that if he kills a Chimera and then both of my Rogal Dorns come out, because my other one was like here, I knew I was going to be winning that trade no matter what. But what ends up happening on my turn 1 is I take my Rogal Dorn, and it goes here. I take some Catachan that I had scouted to here, and then they come out to play as well. And I sink my entire Rogal Dorn into this Ghost Keel. I sink some shots from the Catachan into it, and I end up only hitting one of my Malta shots, which was one of the major differences. And I realized one of the small math things that I did wrong here was when I first rolled the number of shots on the main gun, I rolled a 1, which means 4 shots. Okay, I decided to spend one of the 2 CP that Lord Solar had given me in order to re-roll this, and I think I rolled it into a 5, which ended up meaning that I did like plus 3 damage to this Ghost Kill, but that was probably a mistake. I was probably supposed to not re-roll it and then just use the Catachan to chuck a grenade, which is going to do about the same amount of damage anyway, and it's way more guaranteed. There are fewer hoops I have to jump through with the grenade than I would have to do with the re-rolling number of shots. Anyway, after all of my shooting, this Ghost Keel is on... It took very little. I think it had like 7 wounds. And what this forces me to do is it forces me to charge the Rogal Dorn into the Ghost Keel such that it's on the objective. And then these Catachan also charge. They're also on the objective. But I also wanted to pull the Rogal Dorn out from this firing lane, which it was in previously. And On Ben's turn 2 in Cao Yan, the main reason why I was willing to do this is because a lot of players, when they're playing up against Cao Yan, over-respect the amount of damage that they can do on turn 2. I was rather confident that if I pop smoke, the Rogal Dorn is going to live. But what ends up happening is he brings a Sky Ray. He has like a Sky Ray, like a Devilfish, Breachers, and then some Stealth Suits. And then the Ghost Heal can fall back and shoot. They all shoot in, and he kills the Rogal Dorn. And I pretty much instantly go, huh. Well, it's now way too easy for Ben to try and kill the other Rogal Dorn by dropping the Sun Forges, and if he kills both of my Rogal Dorns, I do not have the damage left to push Cao Yan Tao. And after this Rogal Dorn died, I realized that, oh my gosh, I am now playing defense this game. I have already denied this primary on turn 2. I was able to score my primary on turn 2, and I'm going second. So I have a 5-point primary lead already. If we trade evenly on secondaries, which is pretty likely, we both have similar unit counts with similar mobility to play with. I just need to make sure that I am not blown off the table so that I can use my endgame scoring to come out ahead. And so what ends up happening is I have like a Rogal Dorn not quite touching the objective. I end up pulling this Rogal Dorn back, and there's actually a really funny moment where Ben had his second Piranha, something like this, and I was like, okay, there exists an angle such that this Rogal Dorn can shoot this Piranha, but not be in this firing lane because it'll cut over this, and also not in this firing lane because you're going to be cutting over this corner. And we basically went and found like, yes, this angle exists, and my Rogal Dorn is going to exist within that angle, which was very funny. But what ends up happening over the rest of the game is I go into full, I just need to prevent Ben from scoring primary this entire game. On turn 3, I'm able to take more Catachan and more Bullgryn, and I'm able to put them onto this objective. And I actually use Inspired Command in order to get +1 OC on this objective on turn 3. And I hold Ben to 3-3-3 on Linchpin, and he gets a 13 on turn 5. But because I'm holding him to all of that, I'm making sure that he can't really come onto my side of the board, he's never really able to push me. And so I end the game with something like 12 Bullgryn still alive, simply because he can't create any of these threats. Also, I end up parking, after he has committed all of his resources this direction, I end up parking my Leman Russ Exterminator here on this point because there's no angles, right? He can't shoot it from here. He can't shoot it from here. He would have to come back over this way, and he traded his Sun Forges, which were here, to kill the Rogal Dorn, which was great, but then I was able to kill them right on back with the Exterminator. So he kills my Rogal Dorn, I kill his Sun Forges, and I'm still controlling this one. I end up controlling it on turns 2, 4, and then 5. And it was a really interesting experience because one of the things that we had been talking about the previous night, was Ben was saying, yeah, I don't really know how to push the board as Cao Yan Tao, right? I don't really know how to create pressure on my opponent's side in order to take them off of things really aggressively if I'm ever ahead. But they're playing defensively, especially into melee armies like what I basically become when I had lost my Dorns. I was turned into a melee army where my Bullgryn are going to be the bulk of my damage. And I kind of used that. And I think that was one of the biggest realizations that I had that won me the game was I'm no longer pushing the Tau. I am now going to be playing this one defensively. Let me make sure I score my primary. Let me make sure I score all of my points. And if I can also find opportunities to deny my opponent the ability to score his primary, I'm going to win. I don't need to do a whole lot. It's going to probably be a close game. But as long as I can do those things, I will come out ahead. And I end up winning this one 82-64. I think Ben probably should have gone for a secret mission because he had like breachers and behind enemy lines like here. I think they probably would have died because Lord Solar and friends, as soon as he pops a secret mission, Lord Solar and friends just run out and kill them. But I think it was worth going for because he would have been able to score 2 fewer on normal primary, but he had an opportunity to score 20 more, so it would have been plus 18, which was the difference in the entire game. I ended up winning the game 82 to 64. A really good game. Had a lot of fun. Played against Ben for a 14th time, so I'm now 14-0 going up against him. But I can tell he's getting better. And anyway, so I end that game. I have now hit my normal goal at most GTs of getting at least 3-2. That's kind of the floor of where I see myself playing. So I want to go ahead and play my last game, go for the 6th game, and hopefully win it as well. So for my last game of the tournament, I'm still, like I said, not feeling 100%, but still feeling okay enough to play my games, as evidenced by the fact that I've won my last 2. I ended up playing up against Corey and his Eldar, and it was a very unusual Eldar list from what I've seen. He had an Autarch Wayleaper without the Phoenix Gem, so it's not going to be standing back up. He had the Avatar of Cain, a Death Jester with the Fate's Messenger enhancement, 1 Farseer, 1 Illic Night Spear, 3 Fire Prisms, 1 big unit of 10 Rangers, 2 units of Striking Scorpions, 2 units of Sweeping Hawks, 2 Warwalkers, and 1 unit of Warp Spiders. And the big thing to know about Fire Prisms is they can shoot through each other. So let's imagine that you have 1 Fire Prism here, and these 2 Fire Prisms are here, and I have a tank here. Basically what happens is this Fire Prism can shoot, and then this Fire Prism shoots via this Fire Prism in, and this one can also do the same thing. So you can't chain like this can't shoot to here and then there. They all have to be able to see via this one. But if one Fire Prism can see, if the other Fire Prisms can see it, they can all see the target that they're shooting at. And they have a mean profile because they have 2 shots at strength like 18, AP4, damage flat 6. And it's pretty much full rerolls to hit and wound because the Fire Prism rule is reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and the Eldar rule is reroll 1 hit, 1 wound. So you have 2 shots that are both rerolling a hit, both rerolling a wound, and it's just very consistent damage at flat 6, which does a lot of damage to a lot of important targets. So what I ended up doing in this game is I had a Rogal Dorn something like here. I actually redeploy this one into strategic reserves because after seeing where his fire prisms were, he had like a fire prism like here and here or something. I was very confident that he was going to be able to see the Rogal Dorn and shoot at it with 2 fire prisms on turn 1. I was not willing to risk losing a Rogal Dorn on turn 1 again because I had already lost 2 Rogal Dorns on turn 1. 1 into Ben's Tau and 1 into Travis's Dark Angels. I was not willing to let that happen a 3rd time. But this game ended up being a lot of us looking at each other. I ended up parking unit of Bullgryn here and a unit of Bullgryn here. He had the Avatar chilling here. And there's a lot of like small play on the sides. Oh, another interesting thing that I did, instead of having the Tempestus Command Squad and the Scions all as 1 unit, I split them into 2 this time. So I did not attach them because I knew that the Scion Command Squad was going to be able to kill off, Striking Scorpions or Swooping Hawks or Warp Spiders, whatever. And by having them in 2 different units, I was going to be able to kill 2 different things instead of just struggling to kill, or instead of just super overkilling 1. But we ended up playing this one on Burden of Trust with prepared position, so you can Heroic Intervention for free or go to ground for free with Battleline units, which, again, not really relevant. Although I probably could have done free go to ground a couple of times with my Catachan, now that I think about it. Oh well. So Burden of Trust is a little dumb because Burden of Trust does not score your home objective, and 2, whoever goes first has an entire extra turn of being able to do Burden of Trust because it ends at the end of your opponent's next turn, not at the end of the battle. So if you're going second in the bottom of 5, you cannot guard anything because your opponent doesn't have another next turn to end. So kind of a dumb mission. I don't really like it. But like I said, this game was a lot of kind of looking at each other. I had my Bullgryn here. I had a unit of Bullgryn here that ended up coming here and like charging things later on. But one of the biggest things about this is that I was able to keep Corey off of this objective on turn 2. He scored it on turn 3, but I also stopped him from scoring it on turn 4. Whereas on my first turn, or on my second turn, he put a unit of striking scorpions from here, and they came here for area denial, but they only put one guy on, and I was able to use duty and honor in order to make this. I had one guy hanging on the edge here, and the Bullgryn became 2 OC, which was enough to control it, so I ended up scoring an extra 4 points that way. The most interesting thing I think that happened this game was that the Avatar on Corey's turn 2 failed his Fortune. And Fortune is -1 to wound, which is really big. It's already having damage, has a 2-up, 4-up, and half damage. And oftentimes it has -1 to wound coming through from the Farseer, but he rolled a 1 on his turn 2. So he was planning to take the Avatar and just plopping it on this objective and daring me to do something about it, but he was too worried that I would be able to kill it, but he did not think that the Avatar would live because of the amount of firepower I still had available to try and kill the Avatar if it was just hanging out on the middle objective, which I think is fair. But because of that, I ended up scoring this one on turn 2, and this one on turn 3, and then on turn 4, I score both this one, and Corey only ever scored this one on turn 3. And even though we traded about back and forth, I got a little bit luckier on my secondaries, scoring 25 instead of 19. I was just crushing on primary throughout the course of the entire game because I was guarding more things, I had more control of the primary objectives, and because the Avatar couldn't come out to play relatively early on. So it ended up being, I don't want to say it was a boring game, but just a game where we spent a lot of time looking at each other and not being really able to shoot at each other. He did end up killing both Rogal Dorns throughout the course of the game. He killed up all of my armor, but the Bullgryn, just too difficult to actually take down. I ended up winning this one 63 to 37 because Dice Down was called as I was getting into my 5th turn, going first, and so we just called it there instead of scoring out the rest of it. And so I end up finishing out this tournament going 4-2. I lost my first one, won my second one, lost my third one, and then I won all 3 on day 2. I ended up getting an end result of 10th out of 36. My buddy Alejandro went 4-1 and 1 draw into Ben Jurek, getting 6th out of 36. My roommate Ben went 3-3, getting 20th out of 36. And my biggest goal going into day 2 was to recover any elo that I was going to lose, and I ended up getting about 10 elo. I went from 1617.7 at the beginning of the event to 1627.9 at the end of the event. So, about plus 10. Not as well as I had hoped to be doing. I was hoping to play better on day 1 and hopefully play into stronger players on day 2. At least it's still a positive result overall. I think my biggest learning at this event is make sure you take better care of your diet the day before a tournament by eating something that my stomach was not quite as used to, especially after such a long drive. I just was not feeling well going into this event, and it meant that I was playing way below the standard of what I would normally like to play at. And even today, like 3-4 days later, I'm not quite 100%. I'm like 95%, but even still, every now and then I can still feel like, ooh, that's not quite the way I want my stomach. So with all that said, let's go ahead and talk about what we have coming up for us in the next couple of weeks. So to start off with, I have the SoCal Open 2024 40K Team Championship. It looks like it's 26 teams, maybe 25 teams, I don't remember. This is going to be 8-man teams. I'll be playing it with the Get Hammer squad. After that, I have a couple of weeks off, but then I'm going to the California Cup, which is also going to be in San Diego, California, just like the SoCal Open will be. And then I'm currently signed up for, at the end of November, the Mad Alpaca event up in Fairfield, California, which I think is on the other side, like the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm still looking at going to Battle Shocked as well. My goal, of course, I really want to win a GT this year. I think I'm like right on the edge of doing so. So I'm going to try and go to that one. But also, like I said, Battle Shocked would love to play against some of these strong players that are in San Francisco. I'm also trying to figure out what my stream schedule is going to be in order to make sure that I can get some of these TTS games going, make sure that I can stay on top of my game, and just stay ahead of the meta as much as possible. I have a couple more videos I'm trying to work on over the next couple of weeks, but we'll see exactly how much energy I have available for that, and how much hobbying and how much painting stuff I need to get done. I'm about halfway done with painting my Aquilons, and hopefully we'll get them onto the tabletop sooner than later. For now, though, this has been Joshua Joshi Howard. We've been talking about There Is Only War. We'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.